Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the PMA Connects with Brent Anderson and Polestar, Pay It Forward. We're so happy to have you. I'm going to give you a couple of housekeeping notes to start with. The PMA is here for you as your membership association. I also want to point out some of our members, our staff members who are here. We have Heidi, Karina, Carla is our executive director. We have Sonia and Dan, and I believe Corinne is in here somewhere. But we as a staff are just so happy to be part of your lives and be part of the PMA. And see, I'm getting all choked up. So I also want to give just a couple housekeeping notes as we kind of get started. Just make sure that we have your mute button on. And then we will ask you to go ahead and put your name and where you're from in the chat so that we can all kind of get to know each other and find where people are located and make those connections. And then also keep your eye on the chat because we will put some upcoming events in the chat for you as well with some links. And then if you have any questions during the event, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and we will be monitoring those and looking at those and addressing those at the end. So without further ado, we'd like to get started. I would like to first introduce a friend. I'd like to call him a friend, John Gary, who is the creator of John Gary TV. He is one of our platinum members, and he is sponsoring this event this evening. And so I'd like to turn that over to John, and he's going to go ahead also and introduce Brent. So take it away, John. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited. I am John Gary from John Gary TV, and that is an video on demand Pilates studio that is such a great resource for instructors. We have over 1,000 workouts at this point. I've been doing a lot of work the past 6 years. And each workout comes with notes that you can download, and it's perfect for instructors who want a quick printout of a class to take in. There's thumbnail images of every single exercise for each workout, and there are workouts of all types, all levels, and I hope that you will check it out. But I'm here today because I get to introduce my friend. And if you have never seen him present before, Brent Anderson is one of the absolute best in any business. He has more letters behind his name than there are in the alphabet. He is a master, and I've had the pleasure of watching him present live. I've had the pleasure of watching him present online, and he is fantastic. And I can't think, he's also the creator of Polestar Pilates International. You have to check that out if you haven't. It's an awesome education source for Pilates instructors. Everything from certification to great workshops, and really what he's going to be talking about today with this topic of Pay It Forward. He will be talking about how we as a community can help each other and help others and bring people up, which is really near and dear to my heart. And I know he is the perfect person to talk about this. So without further ado, here is Brent Anderson.
There we go. Well, thank you, John. I have to live up to that introduction, and I have mutual respect for John. I've watched a lot of John's work, and so I learned how to be a better speaker, teacher, presenter, especially in the wellness and fitness world. He certainly is a legend. And I've had the privilege also to be interviewed by him on some of his recordings. I remember when Juan and I got to go out there and talk about Runity with you. That was a blast. And thank you, PMA, for allowing me to do this. And also, it's a pleasure to be a platinum sponsor as well. So John and I both share that in common, and we support our profession. We want you as members of the PMA to have the best professional experience. And there's nothing more important than supporting the membership. A lot of people ask, well, what is the membership going to do for me? And it actually is the other way around, isn't it? It's we ask, what can we do for our membership and our profession? And But this is still a benefit that the PMA is providing to us as the profession. So I really hope that the message that we shared today is not as much about the exercise or the repertoire that we all have become masters at. It's more about the spiritual side of the work. And Joseph Pilates talked about the idea of a balanced development of body, mind, and spirit. He made a comment years ago in his book where he said that those who would practice contrology every day, that there would no longer be a need for prisons, insane asylums, or hospitals, and that there would be world peace. And I can't think of a time that we have a greater need for world peace. We have a greater need for those who are suffering mental illness. We have a greater need for those who are physically ill and suffering from sedentarism, processed foods, and all the other good things that we get exposed to in our environment. And likewise, the prisons. So, you know, when we think of just being conscious and aware human beings, I can't think of a time that I've taught a Pilates class. Maybe John, I bet you never have either, taught a Pilates class where somebody stood up afterwards and said, hey, I got this just incredible feeling that I need to go rob a bank, or I'm going to go beat up somebody that's a different color than me, or I'm going to go beat my children, or do something really horrible, or I'm going to lie because I feel like I want to lie after doing Pilates. And the reality is that's just not the case. When we do, you know, when we take a class, we bring that consciousness, and Joseph talked about it, of that connection of mind, body, and spirit. And I am a big believer that you cannot bring consciousness and awareness to a person's body without impacting their conscious and awareness of their being in humanity. And so one of the things I often talk about is that when we increase the awareness of self, we also increase the awareness of how our actions impact others. And this is a very important concept for us because, you know, we live in a world that is very selfish, very self-absorbed, very interested in getting the click and the like in social media. It defines us quite often. And I've certainly been caught up in that. I want to see how many people like me, how many people like the comment that I made, and heaven forbid somebody cancel me. What I do know, though, is that those things really do not rate with the ability we have to be good human beings and the idea of being kind. It's funny, I got a poem from my mother a couple of weeks ago, and I'll read this and share this with you. And it was something that was written a while back, and it just touched me very deeply. It was before COVID. So I want you to think of this being before COVID and listen to the words that my mom is trying to teach me. Still, she's 86 and I'm almost 60. Here it is. It says, as the world fights to figure everything out, remember, this is about 3 years ago, I'll be holding doors for strangers, letting people cut in front of me in traffic, saying good morning, keeping babies entertained in grocery lines, stopping to talk to someone who is lonely, tipping generously, waving at police, sharing food, giving children a thumbs up, being patient with sales clerks, smiling at passers-by, and buying a stranger a cup of coffee. Why? Because I will not stand to live, and I can hear my mom saying this, in a world where love is invisible. Join me in showing kindness, understanding, and judging less. Be kind to a stranger. Give grace to friends who are having a bad day, and be forgiving with yourself. And if you can't find kindness, be kindness. I thought, what a great message for us to realize that, you know, the kindness begins with us. Deepak Chopra often talks about this with the word peace. When you think of the heart chakra has 4 sutras. And the first sutra is peace. And peace is not something that is going to be dictated by a dictator or a leader in the government. Peace is something that each of us make a decision that we're going to be peaceful human beings, that we're going to not exercise violence in word or in act. And the next sutra is harmony. So harmony is everybody on this screen right now, all of us together. If we already decided internally that I'm going to be peaceful, and my understanding of peaceful might be a little different than Marlene's or Carla's or somebody else, but we've made that decision to be a peaceful person. When we come in harmony, it's like an orchestra. It acknowledges the differences that we have, but the desire for us to be in harmony. So Carla's singing alto and Marlene singing soprano and John singing tenor, and maybe I'm singing bass. But the idea is that we sing in harmony, even though we have differences. And this is exactly where, I want to spend some time. And I want to do a little testing. I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint. People know that one of these days I'm going to surprise people and do a full presentation with no PowerPoint whatsoever. I'm working on it. But I want to use PowerPoint because it allows me to share some images and maybe some concepts that we can do. I'm also going to be using something called Mentimeter. Have any of you ever heard of Mentimeter? Mentimeter allows you to interact with me and with each other. And it's free. I'm going to give you the password for it, but you go to menti.com and it's going to allow you to answer questions anonymously. That's the beauty of it. So I don't see your name assigned to the answer. So you can be really honest with your answers. And it shows the answers for everybody to see, just we don't know who wrote them. But the idea is it allows us to be interactive with a group that's this big right now. I think we're 31 live, which is great for this. And I think we're close to 100 people that registered to learn how to pay it forward. So let me switch us over now to this presentation. And a lot of you will remember the movie that was called Pay It Forward. Can everybody see the slide correctly? Yeah. So Pay It Forward was a great movie about a young kid, and but it actually is a concept and a philosophy when we talk about Pay It Forward. So we look at and we think, here's our Mentimeter. What I'm going to have you do is go to menti.com on your phone, on iPad, even on your computer on a separate screen, and you're going to enter the code 59291023. And as a matter of fact, I should probably write that in your chat so we don't have to worry about that again. But 5929, I sound like I'm some kind of salesman here, but I'm really not selling anything. There we go. All right. So that's our Mentimeter code. And the first question you can start answering, but the first question is, what have you received in your life that you are grateful for? And just start answering that question, and let's see what we have in our group here of what people are grateful for. And what it will do is it's sort of smart. It picks up where if a lot of people put one or two things, it lets all of them be able to, it starts making it bigger and bigger as you start answering it. So I should be able to see somewhere around 25 to 30 people answering this if you're getting on. This is not a passive activity today. So this is an interactive. There's going to be multiple slides like this. So help us out, be part of it, participate. It's how we learn the most. Matter of fact, when I teach at the university, one of the things we talk about is formative learning and summative learning. Formative learning is where we just practice and we try to speak and we try to do, even though it might not be right. And that's okay, whatever right is. Where summative learning would be the NCPT, right? That's the summative learning of our profession. We go and we take a certification exam to show that we've collected enough information to meet the lowest common denominator of being a safe practitioner. Here we go. So we're seeing some beautiful things showing up here and thinking of what you're grateful for, right? And if you think about it, everything starts with gratitude. Even when I do my meditation, I always go gratitude first because we know that gratitude is the window into inspiration. I'll repeat that. Gratitude is the window into inspiration. When we need inspiration, right? And of course, that ties in with our breathing, which I'm not even going to go there. Sometimes I can go off on a tangent on breathing and inspiration, but inspiration spiritually. inspiration of who has needs, who around me needs a little help, needs a little kindness, right? Sometimes we're so busy. There was a great study done by Harvard Theology School where they, or as Princeton actually, the theology department, and they had the students talking about the Good Samaritan, right? So the Good Samaritan is a famous parable taught in Christianity. Well, the Good Samaritan, these particular theology majors were told that they had to go to a different part of campus and share their message about the Good Samaritan. So if you don't know the story of the Good Samaritan, basically there are a lot of people who are supposed to be good, walked right by a person that was in great need and didn't stop, didn't help them. So these were priests and different types of Jewish leaders at the time that walked right by this person that had been mugged and had been injured. And the Samaritan was considered to be inferior in that particular culture, and it was the Samaritan that stopped and helped the person. So they were going to relate this message. So half of them were told, this is the fun part of the story, that they were late and they needed to get over to this other building to share the message about the Good Samaritan. So what they found was that 90% of the people who thought they were late, they weren't really late, passed right by an actor who had been hired to act like the injured person at the side of the road who needed help. And 90% of them passed right by without stopping to help this person. And so I think sometimes our life and our phones and things around us have us so tied up that we're not conscious, we're not aware, we're not grateful, we're not present to be able to identify who has these needs. So I'm looking at the list now and I see some beautiful things in there. Education seems to be the most common, health, friendships, family, faith, animals, love, diversity, you see that, affirmation, altruism, unconditional love. There's some beautiful terms up here that we all have things that we're grateful for. So let's go to the next slide here. So the next one is, have you been the benefactor of someone's mentorship in the Pilates teacher profession? And how has that benefited you? You can actually write this one out, and you can even put 2 to 3 entries into this one if you like. But take a moment and think of how somebody that you either approached or that approached you, that you have built this symbiotic relationship of mentorship, and that they've been able to help you be a better Pilates teacher. They've been able to help you be a better person. So take a moment. I'll let you think about this. This is definitely an important one for this particular webinar, especially as we're talking about paying it forward. So have you ever been the benefactor of that, and how has it benefited you? What's the main benefit? Matter of fact, my webinar that I did earlier today for Polestar was about how we develop education and profession with a couple colleagues of mine in the physical therapy world. And the thing that kept coming up was this idea of how blessed we felt for having great mentorship in our journeys. Now, I've been practicing Pilates for well over 30 years, since 1987. And, it's been a major part of my life. And I can think of all the many great mentors who have helped me. Elizabeth Larkham was my first. And then I got to hang out with Eve Gentry, and I got to hang out a little bit with Kathy Grant, and got to hang out with JC West. And a lot of these people became really important mentors for me in my profession, the same thing in physical therapy. So take a moment and actually take time to fill this out. The activity of filling this out also allows you to have the formative learning that I talked about, where you're practicing bringing things back up in your consciousness of people who have really benefited you in your profession, and thinking of how they've benefited you. So I'm seeing some beautiful ones here. Unconditional support. A good mentor is not interested in perfection necessarily, right? A good mentor is interested in you having that best experience. And we're all different. And a lot of times mentorship isn't always going to be perfect between another person. We look around until we find that match. person gave me the confidence to be a presenter. I can think of many of my mentors who kept pushing me to teach, pushing me to be an educator, pushing me to get a PhD, pushing me to write a book, things that were very foreign to me. I'm a horrible writer, and I can tell you, I just finished my first book and it's submitted, and you guys will tell me how horrible or how good it is when it gets published in the next 6 to 8 months. Learning how the method works as a system, not as an apparatus. I like that. If I had to pay for it, I benefited as I felt like I had someone helping me work on my business. I'd love a mentor that doesn't require payment. A lot of times mentorship does not require payment. We use that word sometimes inappropriate. Even in Polestar, we use that a little inappropriate because you need some mentorship to help guide you and check off. But in lifetime profession, a mentorship relationship is mutually beneficial. It's mutually beneficial. Somebody that comes to me for mentorship, right? And I can't mentor everybody, but somebody that I feel that symbiotic relationship with, I appreciate them because they challenge me to stay young in the profession. They challenge me to stay current. They challenge me to look at new opportunities. They challenge me to look at diversity and things that maybe I didn't grow up with 30, 40 years ago. And that challenge is just as rewarding to me as maybe my expertise in movement science might be to them, or life experience to them. So that's really important. Some people say no, they've had gifted teachers, but no mentors. So these are things that gave a scholarship to someone to attend her training. It changed her life. You're talking about the other end now. You're talking about you being the mentor. I'm asking if you've received that mentorship. This is really important. I think all of us need to receive and be on one side of mentorship before we become the mentor. We need to have that experience. We need to search for somebody at whatever age we are. I still have mentors. I'm 60. I have mentors. I have people that I go to. Relationships that have grown into a give and give relationship. That's it. That's what the mentorship is. Inspiring in all aspects of life. I know my mentors were much more than teaching me Pilates and physical therapy. Some of them are really teaching me, how not to take myself so seriously, how not to be easily offended, how to let water run off my back like a duck, right? How to improve my speech, how to give other people opportunities, how to recognize people for what they've given to us, how to acknowledge them in their contributions to us. So these are all really important. Very good. Let's go to the next slide. So paying it forward, and we're going to go back to Mentimeter. I think we have one or two more, so don't throw that away yet. But paying it forward is actually a philosophy. Pay it forward is an expression for when the recipient of an act of kindness does something kind for someone else rather than simply accepting or repaying the original good deed. That's what paying forward means. And so I want you to think for a second of a time in your life where, for example, I just had somebody who was here in North Carolina at our retreat center, and they went out to eat dinner at a town in North Carolina, a little small town called Pittsburgh. And she ordered the fried chicken and the biscuits that were there, and was really having a nice dinner. And she went to pay for her dinner, and she was told that somebody had already paid for her dinner. Here she was, a stranger in a small town. She bought a nice dinner, doesn't know anybody. She was eating by herself. And as she walked up to pay, the waitress told her that somebody had already paid for her dinner. So I watched this. The next couple of days, we went out multiple times, and she kept trying to be the first one to pay for everybody's dinner. And she didn't win the first couple times. There are other people that were fighting to be the one paying it forward. But the last day, she paid for everybody's dinner. And the smile on her face and the joy that she felt to be able to pay it forward. And she's certainly somebody that did not need to have somebody pay for her dinner. It wasn't about that. It was about the good deed. It was about somebody who saw somebody by themselves and thought, I'm going to do that. The other thing I see a lot, I remember as a kid, we had a toll bridge. And I remember that my dad, when he'd go through a toll bridge, he would say, hey, here's an extra $1 for the person behind me. And that person would come in and they're like, I have no idea who this other person is. What are they doing paying for my toll? Things like that. Or, doing just nice things for people without having the expectation. Well, what typically happens when you pay for it, I had heard from one person that worked one of these toll booths, said that one person paid for the person behind him. The next person paid for 3 people behind him. The next person paid for 5 people behind him. So they had like, he was having a hard time keeping up with the mathematics of how many people had already been paid for, but it starts to become exponential. That's one of the points I want to see. If you look at this diagram here, the first person that did something nice to 2 or 3 people, and they do something nice to 2 or 3 people, and each of them do something nice to 2 or 3 people, very quickly you are exponentially into thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that have been affected by one person who felt the need to pay it forward to 2 or 3 people. That's the concept. Everybody clear on that philosophy? I'm going to make it a little more clear here. This is a very famous story in the Old Testament or the Torah, and this is Jacob and Esau. Now, Jacob was the son of Isaac, who was the son of Abraham. And so whether you're Muslim, Jewish, or Christian, these names should be familiar to you. They all come from the Abrahamic roots. But the story is phenomenal. So the story goes like this. Jacob tricks Esau out of the birthright, or actually his mother does. And Esau gets very mad, and Jacob disappears and goes away from that part of the land. Now, they're both inheriting a lot of wealth. Abraham and Isaac were very, very wealthy in the tribal setting back in those days. Well, when Jacob gets information that he needs to go back to the land of Canaan, and he goes back with his just thousands of followers and all of his sheep and his animals and his flocks and servants back then. I imagine a lot of wives too. I don't know. That's what it sort of seems like back in those days. Things we might not understand, but he comes back and he's afraid to confront Esau. And when he goes to Esau, he finally confronts him and he says, Esau, I want to make peace. I want to give you so many thousand sheep and so many of my family to come help you work your fields and those kind of things. And Esau's answer was phenomenal. Esau said, brother, I have enough. I have enough. And I think sometimes when we get a favor that is done for us, we feel like we have to pay it back to the person that did the favor for us. When in reality, what we need to do is to pay that favor forward. Esau receiving Jacob back into the land of Canaan was a great blessing for Jacob and his, or for Jacob and his family, who later became Israel. And to be able to be reunited with his brother Esau in peace and harmony was an incredible blessing. And then Jacob learned incredible lessons from that and paid it forward to be able to help, tens of thousands of people in the future. So it was, it's a very important lesson. I love that concept of I'm doing something good because I want to do something good. You don't need to pay me back. I have enough. Pay it forward. Pay it forward to somebody else who needs that help, somebody else who needs those sheep, right? So let's go back into our Mentimeter. And here's another question. What unique gifts or talents do each of us have to share with others? What are some talents that you have? And you could be really simple, just along the lines of our being teachers of Pilates, but what are some other talents that you have? What are other things? Because this is not just talking about Pilates. This is talking about humanity. This is talking about you as an individual. You're an amazing individual with incredible purpose. One of the first things we talk about in my meditation often is, who am I? What do I need? And what is my purpose? So as you start thinking of all the special gifts that you've been given, the special talents that you have, right? We start identifying like, wow, I've really been given a lot. I have a lot of gifts, a lot of skills. And because this is anonymous, you can keep putting them down there, as many as you can put down there. So I think it gives you 3 chances, but you can put a lot down there. I know you all have more than 3 gifts, but you can start seeing how, wow, I have really been blessed. I have gratitude, and I have gifts and talents that I can share with others. Very good. We've got 8 people that have responded so far. Some of those have probably responded twice, with 30-something people on live. So let's get a little more participation before I take you to the next slide. Take the time. If you can't find that, it's menti.com if you came in late. And inside the chat, there's a number 592-91023. That'll take you right into the right into it. It's free. It's just on your phone or on your computer. Let's get a few more things in there. So we're looking at this, and isn't it interesting that the number 1 in here is kindness, right? We don't have to have any major talents to be a kind person. We can choose to be a kind person. It's interesting when we talk about how do you want to be known? Or I ask the question, who are you? We quite often will go to answers that revolve around the roles that we play. Oh, I am a physical therapist. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a Pilates teacher. I am a business owner. But all of those things, when we do spiritual studies, can be taken away. So the professional basketball player that no longer a professional basketball player, the firefighter that's no longer a firefighter, the dancer that's retired. Who are we when you take those roles away from us? Besides a Pilates teacher, that's amazing, right? Who are we? And it starts coming down to very interesting attributes, like a lot of the ones that are up here: kindness, compassion, listening, creativity, inspirational, connected, caring, cute. It's like these are very powerful definitives of who we are or who we can be, that nobody could ever take away. When you read the stories of the Holocaust, you read stories of prisoners in war, you read stories of people that were in prison unjustifiably so for the wrong reason, and they come out and they're still this really kind, compassionate person. It's because they identified themselves with that, not what the world identified them as. They identified themselves by their attributes, the attributes that were important to them, that maybe were ingrained in them from their grandmother or from a father or from a cousin or a brother, a sister, or a lover, that ingrained these attributes into them. These are beautiful. All right. So when I think of this as a Pilates teacher, I think and kind shows up in there as well, and listening and facilitating learning. Those are all things that I put in there. Working with elderly, working with children. A lot of you all teach movement, coaching health. Some of you are therapists, maybe you treat pathologies. And of course, being kind, listening, facilitating. These are all the kind of unique talents that we all share and we all have that we could share with somebody, right? So now comes the hard question, right? Back on your Mentimeter. Who do you know or what community might benefit from our unique set of skills, our gifts, our unique talents? Who are some of the communities that we can reach out to, or the individuals that we might be able to help? Because you know where I'm going with this, I'm paying it forward. We got about 15 more minutes to get there of how we can pay it forward, how we can help certain groups of people. And remember, it could be different for each one of us. Each one of us might have a different access to a different population of individuals who we can serve or pay forward with our unique set of gifts and skills. So let's get as busy as we can in there, put those in there. And this was something that we've talked about for a long time, thinking of even in the PMA, we've talked about a lot. I remember being in a presentation that we were looking and talking about diversity about 6-7 years ago on a panel. And one of the things that kept coming up was what would happen if each of us in this room went out and did 2 or 3 hours of service a month? What would happen? What would happen if, all of us as Pilates teachers went out and did that? What would happen if all of us as Pilates teachers in our extended families and friends and communities and tribes went out and did that? So we're seeing some beautiful things here. Incarcerated individuals, cancer survivors, special need children's, low income individuals, elderly. Yeah, there's some great ideas here. I wish we were in a big room so I can give you all a big hug, because I think these are really important. If you know me, you know I'm a hugger, and it's been hard being virtual. Can't wait for the PMA conference. And if you're ever in need of a hug, you just come over to the Polestar booth and we'll give you a good hug. John's a good hugger too, I know that. All right. So we said, who do you know that might benefit from your paying the kindness, mentorship, or assistance forward? And you said a lot of them, very important ones. So we had up here underserved neighborhoods, schools, community centers, churches, prisons, halfway houses. There are a lot of places that, just probably wouldn't be able to pay it back. But imagine what happens if we provide education to women that might be in a halfway house that have survived abuse, and provide them with a career to go be a Pilates teacher where there's such a void right now. Just the Club Pilates has a need of 80 Pilates teachers a month. New teachers, Polestar, Bazi, Balanced Body, Boulder, we can't produce enough teachers to do that. So imagine giving a profession to one of these women or somebody who in a community center would not ever be able to afford our education. Imagine what they could do. Imagine the people they could reach. A lot of times we might not be able to reach into that community, but they could, right? Whatever that community is, prison, elderly homes, be able to go in. Imagine what it'd be like to go into some of these assisted living facilities and teach a seated Pilates class once a month or once a week, or between your practitioners in town, you each take a week and you go into that assisted living facility and you teach a chair Pilates class. Do you think there would be an appreciation, a sense of gratitude, something that feels powerful? Or imagine having a free discussion on Zoom once a month to young Pilates teachers that just want to ask questions and have somebody they could talk to. That'd be great. So the ideas are endless. It's up to us to come up with a way to do that. All right. So things to do. This is where you get to write something down on your own piece of paper or your computer or your phone. But things to do. We've already done all the homework here. So now it's making a list of your talents and gifts. We saw a big sampling of that between you. You make a list of individuals who might benefit from your abilities to pay it forward. So we just went over that. So children, elderly adults, underserved communities, prisons, halfway houses, wherever we can serve. And then plan on how you can pay it forward. Now, here's a very important point. Now, I sat as the chairman of the board of Shake a Leg Miami for 7 years, organization that provides sailing and water access to children that have impairments and also children that are underserved in the inner city of Miami. And we provided the ability for them to learn how to sail, how to kayak, how to have eco education, the summer school programs that were underwritten for them to be able to attend. And one of the things I realized was that it has to be sustainable. So as chairman of the board, we had to make sure that there was enough money to pay for the rental of the space. There was enough money to pay for the repair of the boats. There was enough money to pay for the transportation of the children. And we realized that there was a large community that wanted to feel like they were part of this, that could contribute the money. There were individuals who had professional education in working with children with disabilities. There were teachers who were very excited about working with their classes in underserved areas and giving them the same privileges that were being enjoyed by kids in school districts that were wealthier. There were people who were skilled in the aquatics, some of them with their own disabilities and impairments. So disabled veterans that could teach sailing to children that didn't have legs or children who were cognitively impaired. And the idea was trying to create an environment that was sustainable. Everybody has a different purpose. What happens sometimes, we get caught up and we go, I got to help this population. And by myself, I'm going to teach Pilates to these people every single day, 3 hours a day, and not have any revenue and not have any assistance and not have anybody subsidizing it. That won't last very long. Mother Teresa probably could do it. Mother Teresa could do it. But the idea is that most of us need to be sustainable. So choosing an activity, even if you pick up a couple friends or colleagues, you go in together, you split up some of the work and you do something that, you know, is 1 or 2 hours a month of serving the community, whether it's the Pilates community and you're serving on the board, you're serving in a committee, you're serving some other way at the conferences, you're volunteering with IT and social media. That's all volunteering. That's all serving the community too. It doesn't always have to be an underprivileged community, right? The idea is that we're serving with the idea that we know when we pay it forward, it's going to bless the lives of many more people than just the 2 or 3 people that we impact. And so it needs to be sustainable. I'll say that word over and over again. Make sure that you have your sustainability built into your plan of how you're going to pay it forward. And then you pay it forward. You make it happen. So when we're going to go into the Q&A in just a little bit, in about 5 minutes, I think, right, Marlene? We have the last 10 minutes or so of Q&A. So I want you thinking of questions and, you know, maybe just my age and the fact that from the time I've been a kid, I've been involved in service. I served a mission for my church for 2 years in Spain that I paid for my own mission. I've been involved in community service my whole life. I still am. Now I'm up in North Carolina working on making Siler City with a group of other individuals who really wanted to be sustainable and to have a better quality of life for the citizens of Siler City. And so we're working hard on that. And guess what we're putting in? We're putting in some free Pilates classes. We're putting in some health consultations. We're putting in some vocational education. Guess what's inside that vocational education? Pilates education. Why? Because we have about 15 Club Pilates and studios here that are all begging me for teachers. So I have the ability to scholarship a few individuals who really show forth excitement about it. They just couldn't afford it, but they love coming to the free classes and they move very well and it's something they want to do. Now all of a sudden they get a job where they're making $40,000 to $60,000 a year. Can they pay it forward and help the community that helped them? You bet they can, right? And I think that's the idea. And again, I don't expect them to do that. I don't do it with the expectation that they're going to bring that back to me. That's part of that word unconditional love that one of you put up there. But I expect of myself to pay it forward. The question is, do you have that expectation of yourself? And if you own a business, can you create that expectation in your employees? If you have a training program, can you create that expectation in your training program? In our profession, do you create that expectation amongst all of us that share the PMA? Do you create that expectation? I can't help but ask myself those questions. So I want you to imagine just I think we're 33 that are on here live right now, right? And the other 70 of you that are going to see this afterwards. So if there's 70 of us or 100 of us, however many end up seeing this, and we do 2 hours a month in our communities, whatever that looks like, That is 200 to 300 hours a month of work serving our community, paying it forward. Completely sustainable. It doesn't interfere at all with your revenue generating, right? With your sustainability in life, but 2 hours a month. 2 hours a month is nothing. It goes by really quick. But if you volunteer 2 hours a month, some way, you know, you could call Marlene and ask her how you can volunteer 2 hours at the PMA if you want to start with professional volunteerism. If you want to start in your community, your church, your schools around and ask, hey, I got 2 hours, 2 hours a month that as a Pilates teacher, a kind person, somebody who understands, you know, humans, I got 2 hours a month. How can I pay it forward in your community? A lot of times the community will give you enlightenment as to what they actually need versus what you think they need. So asking them goes a long ways. All right. And that pretty much concludes my presentation. I think we're in good timing to have some Q&A at the end. I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for us. And would love to hear your thoughts, would love to, I do think we're small enough that we could either do, with this size of a group, we can do the chat with your questions and I can monitor that. Or, you know, if it was something that needed to be more of a conversation, you could raise your hand and we can release your mic. Right, Heidi, if we need to?
Yep, and I actually just did it today. So if they raise their hand, that we can allow them to do that. So
Okay,
we did
perfect.
have one question in there.
So we've had
Oh,
about 10
Marlene.
minutes of Q&A. So. And I would love to see your faces. So if you come off of your blocked videos, always makes me a lot happier because if we were live, we would do that. Nidra has her hand up.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
You're good. Go ahead,
Okay.
Nidra.
First of all, I love this talk. This is awesome. It's just very moving, right on with the humanity of who we really are. It's brilliant. So
Thank you, Nidra.
just to express that, I do have this kind of moment of like, God, because I have a very high desire to help, and then a sense of lack of sustainability. So for example, I'm an old-time teacher. I'm kind of the person people call when they're in trouble or they're in crises. Somebody going through teacher training, or so I have in a sense mentored a variety of girls through. The idea of helping up and coming teachers is very appealing to me, as well as just helping in the community. But how do I get my desire to help out? How do I get it known? That's always where I hit, because it's like, okay, I commit to something and then I have one person turn up or something like that. It's like I don't feel like I have access to reaching large numbers.
Yeah, and sometimes it is that way, Nidra. Sometimes it is the one person that we reach out to, and then we get a reputation, and then it's 2, and then it's 5. Something that we had talked about before, and the PMA has plenty of things to do, but I think it was in the back burner for a while of just having a mentorship board kind of thing that people could just go onto the PMA website, and those who wanted to volunteer and be mentors would have their contact information, maybe some areas that they have gifts and unique qualities that they'd like to share, and you know, see if there's a match. Somebody could contact you, and then it really comes up what I want to be careful with. For example, there's a great easy software called Calendly, right? Carla uses it all the time. That's how I met Carla, was by making a Calendly appointment with her. And Calendly allows you to block off a certain amount of time that you're available to meet with somebody. So if you did say that you were going to do 2 hours a month of mentoring, you could open those 2 hours inside Calendly. I think it's close to free, if not free. And you can set it up and people can schedule. So rather than them having your phone number and calling you at all odd times of the day or emailing you a million things. It could just be a Calendly appointment. That's calendly.com. Somebody may write that in the chat. But calendly.com is a way to manage that. And maybe there's something, you know, that comes of this, you know, with the PMA, that we could do something that's pay it forward and a mentorship board kind of thing. So it wouldn't take too much to do that. But that's the other thing you do is in social media, you just, you know, you make yourself available in social media. You tell people that you'd be glad to, you know, you're looking for a mentorship partnership. You're looking for one. Again, I don't want to have 50 mentees. I mean, I'm happy with one or two mentees that I'm really working with. Again, this is a relationship where you're really intimately building and developing in that synergistic feeling going. Does that make sense, Nidra?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I know
Thank you.
John had his hand up too, so.
Thank you.
You get John off, you get his mic up.
There we go. Hi. So yeah, great. This is great, Brent. Absolutely spot on, I think. And I really like that, because I think as far as what you guys just talked about, finding teachers to help, or people who want to become teachers to help, I think that's a bit easier for us, because we do have the benefit of social media. And if you've got followers, or you can jump on somebody else's social media that has a lot of followers and offer your mentorship, I think that's a really kind of easy way to move into it. I would like to see if you have any suggestions about how resources, how would you find out in your community how to help? So for instance, senior centers, things like that. Are there easy resources that we could use?
You know, it's incredibly easy to find those opportunities. The hard part is having the courage to go there and knock on the door.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. In Siler City, they have a Hispanic liaison. They have Community for Schools, which provides lunches for children of underprivileged homes, provides after school care. So these are two organizations that immediately know. In Siler City is 40% Hispanic, 25% Black, and the rest white. Most of them without advanced degrees, most of them working in the chicken plant or in other labor-oriented. It's a very labor-oriented town here in North Carolina. And so when you see the Hispanic liaison and the Community for School for Kids and the vocational programs, and there's also a number of assisted living facilities. So right away, I realized there are already organizations in place. I don't have to start an organization. And then as I started meeting them, John, I started hearing, oh, this person is doing something like that. You might want to talk to them. Here's their number. The challenge is to have the gumption to, you know, the tenacity to go. Now, did I get turned down the first time, a couple of times when I went to these places? Or did I go there and there was nobody there to receive me because they're not open in the mornings? Yes, that does happen. But you just got to go back. It's tenacity, you know, and I think that when we understand that, you know, part of all of us as part of humanity need to be doing this. So we can't be satisfied with not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? I think too many people give up too quick and they're satisfied saying, I tried, but they were closed this morning. I tried to go visit some elderly people at the assisted living facility and, you know, COVID didn't let me in, kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, let's be creative. Let's keep pushing that envelope and seeing if there's another way that we could do it creative. Of course, we do everything virtual now. They have a big TV inside the assisted living facility. So find one of the attendants there that says, hey, you know, I'm willing to offer my service for free if you'll turn on the TV and connect them so that they can be sitting in their chairs with me doing a class once a week. Right? That's the idea.
Yeah, so I think what you were saying before is, you dedicate 1 or 2 hours that you're going to do your mentorship. You can do that same thing with finding where you can mentor. Spend
Yeah.
1 or 2 hours a month
That's right.
so that it's not eating up all your time. But
It should
in 1 or 2
not,
hours,
it
you
should
can
not
cover
be
a
your
lot of ground.
primary. Right. It should not be your primary, but it does bring so much worth to what you do and justification for who we are. And it exemplifies our profession. It exemplifies what Joseph Pilates saw. How is the whole world going to do Pilates? Right? That was what he said. When everybody does contrology, there'll be no more prisons, there'll be world peace. Well, how's everybody going to do Pilates right now in the current system? It's impossible. And the idea also comes down to Pilates is a way of life. And so are we practicing contrology every day? Do we have to go with I did a webinar last week or 2 weeks ago, and I asked the question, do I have to go to a certified Pilates teacher to be able to practice Pilates? And of course, the answer is no. Joseph never intended that. Do I have to go to a Pilates teacher to be able to improve my skills and improve my quality of movement? Yes. But should I be doing my hundreds every day at home and doing my full mat class at home as best I can with, those things? Yes, you should. Should I take John Gary's TV class every day? Yeah, you should. You should subscribe to that. There's thousands of classes, right? So you get the idea that we do have the tools, right? So think about it this way, John. Imagine going to a community center in an underserved area close to you that you could sustain, and making a subscription available to the members of that church or that community center for your free classes that are offered at this time. You don't have to do anything. You already have it recorded. Your service that day was connecting it to a community that can't pay for your services. What do you think is going to come out of there? 1 or 2 people that want to, maybe become Pilates teachers. Yeah. Awesome. Other questions, comments, revelations? We'll take any of them. I see a comment here from Christine Laroque, and she says, I'm volunteering at the foundation my dad created 40 years ago that gives scholarships to unhealthy, I think, students. As a university professor, I find important to give others a chance to get education and realize that potential. I mean, that's the age-old analogy, right? You teach somebody to fish and you feed them for a lifetime. You give them a fish, you feed them for a meal. And unfortunately, in our society today, around the world, we just keep giving fish. If you're truly a follower of Joseph Pilates, his third principle was whole body commitment. And whole body commitment was work ethic, an attitude of work, right? To be able to perform everything necessary for whole body health, which was a balanced development of body, mind, and spirit. And was also the ability to, he said, there were 9 things: exercise, nutrition, sleep, hygiene, fresh air, sunshine, balance of work, rest, and recreation. So that's contrology, right? That's what we live every day in our life. So good stuff. A couple more comments here. I think we're out of time. Thank you for the nice comments, everybody.
Brent,
Marlene, you made a comment. You want to just say that real quick? Because I think everybody needs to hear that about May 7th, and Pilates Day is a great way to kick it off.
Sure. I mean, as I was listening to you, I thought, boy, we have something in place with Pilates Day, but what a great way for our instructors to bring that to their community. And I did put a link in the chat, pilatesday.org. What a great tool to use to give back to your community. And I just want to say thank you, Brent, for presenting this amazing and inspiring program. I hope that it takes all of us outside of our comfort zone and allows us to go and really give back to our community in ways that we haven't before. whether it's in our Pilates community or other areas. Take all of your gifts and share them with the world. And thank you for inspiring that. And I also want to thank John Gary for sponsoring this, and the friendship that you two have is also inspiring. And it's really is so great to see such a great turnout tonight. I know we're all busy, and it's just really nice to get together and share these positive opportunities. There are opportunities coming up, of course, with the PMA conference coming up in October. There was something in the chat there for you on that, but that information can always be reached at our Pilates methodalliance.org website. And we as a staff, we are always here to listen to you and to learn what your needs are and see where we can help you. So thank you again for attending. The recording will be available, and we just really thank you all for being a part of the Pilates community, a part of the PMA, and just have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marlene. Thank you, John. Thank you, PMA.
Bye.
Thank you.
Be kind.